Hello, fabulous friends and fans. Welcome to your Saturn special horoscope covering Saturn's move into the sign of Sagittarius at the very end of 2014 for the better part of the next 3 years. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. Saturn moving into a new sign does suggest that all of us in some way are going to understand that our most important learning is going to come if we pay attention to the lessons that we are being called to, if we pay attention, if we act practical, and if we put in the time to gain tangible results. Saturn, ultimately, it is my belief, and a lot of astrologers out there do believe, that Saturn is reward. Saturn needn't be difficult. Even though he gets a pretty bad rap, Saturn is saying manifest and honor the fact that we are incarnated. Honor the physical plane. And this is going to be a big lesson for all of us in some way. Saturn, as he moves to the sign of Sagittarius, will be speaking with Jupiter and Neptune and Uranus as well. All of this does speak to this call to be honest with ourselves, to put in the time, and to practically manifest, to move beyond what might be a dream, even a pipe dream, and actually do the work so that we gain something very valuable in the process, self-respect, which is ultimately what Saturn is truly about. Now, I have created a special video to look at Saturn, how Saturn moving into Sagittarius is going to speak to us collectively. But this video is, of course, for your sign. I thank you so much for being here. And I thank all of you out there who've been requesting these videos for months. Thank you so much for your trust in my interpretation of the sky. It will be a great transit. I do believe that. And it will be a great move as Saturn moves through the sign of Sagittarius. Enjoy. Hello, fabulous Aries. Thank you for being here. Wherever Saturn goes, so go our most important lessons. And it tends to be an area of life where we feel called to go. It's like we know, we feel a push. And even if it looks kind of iffy, even if it feels like, okay, I don't really know what I'm going into, what's really going to happen here, we know on some deep level that that is where our growth is, our healing is, and our learning is. And that's where we're likely to gain that very precious thing called self-respect, as I spoke about in the intro. For you, you have got Saturn moving into a part of the sky for you that has to do with getting out there, embracing an adventure, and getting out into the world as well, introducing yourself to new ideas, new perspectives, new world views. So this tends to be a time when a lot of Aries, and I've seen this actually, I've seen people go through this, where Saturn moves into this part of the sky and all of a sudden it's like, okay, I got to get out of here. That's the main thing. I've got to get out of here, whether that's where you are in terms of your station in life or where you are in terms of where you are, the place, the city that you find yourself in. This tends to bring with it a need to make movement happen in your life, a need to start putting into place things that you hope will manifest further down the road, which is ultimately what this part of the sky is about for you. It's also about whatever it is you need to do to gain the credentials or experiences that you might need to fully actualize goals that you hold very dear. So it's about the preparation to experience bigger things further down the road. And a part of that can be understanding the need to know more, experience more, and do more. So I've seen again and again, I've seen people have Saturn move into this part of the sky and they're like, I got to move. I got to get out of here. I'm done with this place. I've seen people really do some very dramatic things that may or may not last. Actually, most of the time I'm seeing that it doesn't always end up being a really permanent thing, but they feel like they just want to sell all their things and move across the country or move to a whole other country as well. They feel very called to another way of looking at the world, yes, by actually being in other places in the world as well. So there's a highlight here on actually experiencing new cultures, new environments, having new experiences, all part of leaving the old behind. You've just spent with Saturn Saturn's last move through the sign of Scorpio is very much about getting your money together, yes, your finances together, but also it's about being honest with yourself and letting things end that you know need to end. So it's a very conscious process. Now it's about the next thing and the new thing. So you've done the work, you've gotten things together within you. Now it's about actually getting out there and welcoming the new and welcoming the next. It's like you're stronger now, you know yourself better, and you're ready to embrace it. You're ready to embrace the next thing. Saturn moving into this part of the sky is part of sort of building credentials and putting things in place, putting things into place that will help get you where it is that ultimately you want to go. It is not uncommon to see people move towards higher education with this particular move. And again, this is something I've seen again and again as well. As Saturn moves through this part of the sky, you realize that you really want to be more educated. You want to expose yourself to new ideas, new mentors as well. And it's usually in the context of some sort of formal education context. So if you, and again, this is usually not like a trade. Okay, this is not about you necessarily building skills, but this is about gaining a higher credential is the main theme with this. And especially where it comes to being in the university environment or in the graduate school environment as well. So you see this move. So if you have been one of those people who's wanted to, and if you feel, and especially at the beginning, if you feel like, you know, I didn't do so well in my final undergraduate pieces of work, or I didn't do too well in my thesis, and if you've been out of school for a while, this is going to be the call for you to start paying attention to what's happening with you on a level of education and what you need to do to put yourself into that environment. And so some people might find themselves starting to do more research, starting to write more academic papers, trying to get them published as well as part of putting things into place so that you can move into that higher education area of life. The thing is, though, wherever Saturn goes, things might feel hard. They might not feel secure, but what you need does happen. And so when I see Saturn moving into this part of the sky, if you're insecure, if you know that things will be hard or things have been hard, you haven't really been able to get the kind of higher education you wanted before, you are going to be able to go through that process. Absolutely. You might have to jump a few hoops to get there. You might have to do a few things, write a few papers, work a little harder than it might seem like other people are. And also, once you're in that environment, it might feel like it's taking a little bit of time for you to really feel like you're supposed to be there and really feel at home. You might be identifying what you don't like more than what you do like. But for all that, you engage in a process that ultimately helps move you towards self-respect. And institutions of higher learning and other countries tend to be very blessed in that endeavor. This part of the sky also has to do with, you know, as I've said, it has to do with taking on an adventure. And wherever it is that you feel called to make some sweeping changes, Saturn is going to say to you, okay, it's now or never. Like, make that happen. If there's something you really want to achieve in the bigger picture of your life, what is it that you need to do right now? What time do you need to put in right now? What vision do you need to cultivate right now to actually make that happen? At the very end of 2017, Saturn will change signs again and will move into a part of the sky that has to do with career and accomplishment. So this may not necessarily be a time of a lot of accomplishment, but this will be a time when you put those things into place that make accomplishment possible a little further down the road. There's also an element here that has to do with publishing as well. Writing, to a certain extent, if you're sharing some sort of broad ideas or new way of looking at things, it can be a bit of a strenuous process, but for all that, you are going to be inspired to share on a bigger level and to share in front of more of the world as well. And some of you might be called to do that in the political arena as well. And so Saturn moving through this part of the sky, again, it's going to be about the being realistic. And so when Saturn moves into this part of the sky, unless, like, you know, you can't run for president unless you first, you know, had some sort of government office. I mean, you can, of course, anybody can, regardless of what country you're in. I do believe that anyways. Democracy, you can. But if you're really going to have a shot, you need to be in a place where there's a certain establishment behind you. And that's just the reality of politics, as far as I know, the little I know about politics. So this is about you saying to yourself, okay, I believe I have a goal. I believe I want to serve. I want to do public service. Now, where are you going to start? Where are you going to make those connections? Are you able to do what's really required? And you're going to see what's really required. Do you want to actually be a part of this? You'll get to see what's actually taking place, sort of the nitty gritty, and decide if that's something you want to do, whether it's on a very local level or a larger level. And for some of you out there, I do have to say, especially in 2016 and 17, once Saturn starts speaking to a Uranus, this is about, to me, I look at this and I think about how spirituality has to be practical, okay? Spirituality, if it is really going to have a big impact on your life, has to be something that improves your life on a very practical level, helps you be a better person. That's when spirituality is at its best. And I do think that a lot of you out there, in some cases quite suddenly, might find yourself introduced to a whole way of looking at the world, a philosophical orientation, a spiritual orientation, a religious orientation that resonates very deeply, and for some of you almost instantly as well. And so when that happens, when you feel called to take on a different world view, of course, that's your spirit calling you. Of course, you want to check in with yourself. Saturn's not going to allow you to get too impractical. So you want to check in with yourself, make sure that it has some sort of practical way of making you a better person. But for all that, I do think that a lot of people out there, a lot of people of your sign out there are going to find themselves being called to a new way of looking at the world, and it is a call that they cannot refuse. So if you feel called to find your spiritual path, then that is certainly a new adventure in itself. And that is an adventure that certainly can help gain you a whole other perspective, and a perspective that in a practical, tangible way helps make you better. So for so much more horoscopes and so much more, please stay tuned to my website, nadiyashah.com, and my YouTube channel. I'm truly so grateful to have this moment with you. It'll be a great transit of Saturn moving through the sign of Sagittarius for you, Aries. Enjoy.